It is day 2 of the International Dilemmas of Humanity conference in Johannesburg. The first day was dominated by calls for support for Palestinian people. Well, today the delegates will look at ideology and how trade unions are relevant in the current global space, which is marked by poverty, climate change and geopolitical battles. Ziniko Mhlaba is live for us from Constitution Hill, watching that story in Braamfontein this morning. Ziniko, tell us more about the ideological positions this morning. Are they all on the same page, essentially?
Well, Tabigel, I can tell you we will be sharing a lot of those conversations, a lot of those questions throughout the day on the second day of this particular conference. And of course, it's titled Dilemmas of Humanity. It's a global initiative which is hosted by South Africa this year, but there have been a couple of conferences regionally taking place in other continents of the world. So this week, actually, they're here in South Africa. When we're talking about the global politics, we're going to talk about how socialism can find its space in that particular world. You'll also remember that there's a lot of talk now about how BRICS is trying to break away from the existing political structures, especially dominated by the global powers such as the US and other European countries, but also the space in which trade unions and socialist movements have to find themselves and try to influence society to buy into that idea. Is that idealistic? How is it going to work? Is it necessary? I'm joined now by Mr. Eugene Puryear, who is going to give us more context coming all the way from the USA. So thank you very much for your time. Welcome to South Africa. Let's get straight to it. It's about socialism, I understand. That's what this conference is championing. But you are looking at how the situation is globally. Yesterday, a lot of time was spent on the issues of supporting Palestine. But it also talked to the issues of politics and how the global community, especially the United Nations, has been delaying implementing resolutions which would assist or would end, or presumably, that conflict. So do you think socialism and socialist movement have a space in the global politics? Are they effective?
We think that absolutely socialism has a space in global politics, and what we're here to do at Dilemmas is to really show that out here. I mean, we're living in a world where you've got more food produced than the amount of people who need to eat, but yet you still have hundreds of millions of people living in hunger. You have trillions of dollars, $37 trillion sitting in tax havens, but we have immense income inequality and unemployment. And so we know that the basic realities of the capitalist system are what are behind so many of these different problems, or dilemmas, if you will, and we think that a lot of the answers for what we can do to solve these things come from putting people before profit, and that's ultimately what socialism is really about. And that's also why we wanted to start yesterday in a big way with solidarity with Palestine, because from our point of view, the entire project, the entire Zionist apartheid project, is just designed to help keep the writ of the United States and other Western powers going in Central Asia and the crossroads of the world, the Middle East, Western Asia and the crossroads of the world, to help them maintain their domination over global affairs and global resources. So we want to see a people-centered reality. That's what socialism is about. So we're here from around the world, trade unions, political parties, and social movements, to talk about how we actualize it.
I mean, why don't we say trade unions globally, have lost their relevance? The Minister of International Relations in South Africa called on the local unions to galvanize international unions so that they can start playing their part. Is that a sincere call, or is just a call for trade unions to get into the political space, to get into a position of power for their self-interest? How would you respond to that?
Well, I would say that the minister was right that we need more trade unions involved in politics. And I think even right here in South Africa, you look at the role of trade unions in the fall of apartheid. I think we can look around the world at everything from the weekend to the 8-hour day to unemployment insurance and many different elements that are considered basic everyday rights in many countries around the world are things that were brought to the forefront by the trade union movement. And I think it's very appropriate for the trade unions as the main instrument of the working class to also become a political vehicle and instrument for the wills of the working class beyond just simple shop floor workplace issues, but how people want to see society more broadly. And so I certainly think that it was an important call, and I think the very fact that we have unions like NUMSA who are playing a huge supporting role of this conference and this broader dilemmas process around the world shows that we have trade unions that are stepping up and pushing back.
All right, so we're here in Johannesburg in Braamfontein. It's a city center. How do these gatherings, as you embark on hosting them in different worlds, how do they assist in terms of assisting the ordinary person on the ground. I see these conferences taking place on television, but an ordinary person will say, how does it benefit me? Because I'm unemployed, I'm hungry right now, I'm dealing with global warming. Here in South Africa, we might have a storm by no later than today. So how do these conferences and these conversations assist people on the ground on practical terms?
I think they cohere the political agenda. And I think ultimately part of the reason why we see so little movement around so many of the critical issues that are facing working class people here in South Africa, in the United States, in Brazil, and all around the world is because we don't have a coherent enough political agenda that people can come to rally around and galvanize and really create political instruments by which they can make change. So I think that's one of the important pieces here, and that's why we have groups like the Shack Dwellers movement here, NUMSA is here. We're here from around the world to talk about how we can cohere the right kind of political movement and political platform that can start to galvanize the political space to push the authorities to start to address the issues like unemployment, like homelessness, like income inequality, and so on and so forth.
Thank you very much, Eugene, for your time.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you very much. That's Mr. Eugene there, an activist coming all the way from the USA, attending this particular conference, saying Johannesburg is dilemmas of humanity, Tembekile, looking at how socialist movement can actually participate or how they can find their space within the global politics. So throughout the day, that will be the agenda that will be broken down into different commissions, different discussions, and those commissions are expected to take place throughout the day. So we'll see how the other international communities, other international guests are relating their messages and how the international community can benefit from these conversations. Typically, expect you in studio for now.
Ziniko Mhlaba, thank you very much for that this morning. Well